Jamie Dimon can afford to be a little less humble today. JPMorgan reported a decent quarter of earnings, up 34% on the third quarter last year. Agnes, what's driving this? And
some of the things that we expected, right? I mean, the housing market has turned, as Jamie Dimon said during a conference call. They're seeing a lot more in terms of mortgage originations, also investment banking.
And that's new, but that's refis too.
Yeah, it's refis. I mean, it's essentially, Federal Reserve policy in effect, and just rates have gone down. And then we also saw investment banking fees go up too. So that's big for the bank. So I mean, all around, it's a pretty solid quarter for them. And I mean, I think what was also noteworthy was just how little there was about the whale, right? This trade that went disastrously wrong, that everybody was obsessed about.
So we were talking earlier, roughly $6 billion of profit in the third quarter. The trade seems to have cost the bank roughly $6 billion. It's only a quarter's profit, but it's still a big number.
Yeah.
It's maybe a little early. I think you're making the point, a little early for JPMorgan to get too much back to where he was.
Exactly.
But of course, that's not in his nature either, right? And to be fair to him, why wouldn't he want to try and put this whole episode behind him?
Right.
I mean, the point is, it doesn't seem like he took responsibility for the whole thing. Yeah. But he seems to think like that's okay. I took responsibility for it. Now everything is great again. And his ego is kind of is right there again. He's very confident. He
had made a point of bashing bank regulation and stuff like that.
He's done that
went a bit quiet.
And he made a big point the other day of bashing again on Bear Stearns and sort of rewriting history on sort of what exactly the cost was that it was foisted on him.
Right.
And it just I think he's kind of tried to sweep this under the rug now.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously, it kind of puts the whale episode into a certain context, right? But it doesn't, it still doesn't really change some of the doubts that we all have about, like, how something like this can happen.
Right.
It's a very big
Is the bank
bang.
manageable
Exactly.
even
Is
for
it manageable?
a good manager?
Now, I'm sure, for Dimon and some of the executives there, of course, they're going to say yes. And then, the fact that they've had a good quarter will kind of, help that argument. But, I mean, the reality is you did have a huge, there was a huge hit. They were unaware of it. The bank's assets grew again in the quarter. There's some other, I mean, it's one of the biggest, it's the biggest.
And there's still some fallout from this. What looks like fallout from it. I mean, the CFO, it looks like is going to move out of that job. He just came over from the investment bank a couple of years ago. Seemed to be everything was hunky dory. Now they're saying, well, it has nothing to do with this. But of course, they also put somebody in between the CFO and Jamie Dimon on a reporting line, a very unusual structure, which may be why he's looking for another job either inside the bank or not.
So basically, we wouldn't want to suggest Jamie Dimon shouldn't get too cocky, but maybe he should.
No, it's a good look. You can't take away from the fact that it's a great quarter.
Yeah, of
but
course.
a lot of it is Federal Reserve money. The government that Jamie doesn't seem to like that much.
And frankly, I think it's a tough thing for bank CEOs not to be cocky, right? It kind of goes with the territory. But again, we have had an extraordinary experience over the recent years that I think it actually probably is going to have to be part of the job description, because there are some issues here, and I don't think you can just kind of shut down and rail against regulators for essentially doing their job.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it there. We'll be keeping an eye on JPMorgan and the other banks, and we'll have more breaking views next week.